120 Hz refresh rate is the single most important setting for console players. It's what gets you on par with PC players. If you're on PlayStation, go to your settings and scroll down until you see screen end video, and underneath the video output tab, you will see the 120 Hz output option. Now switch this from off to automatic. If you are unable to change this option, it's because your monitor or TV does not support it, unfortunately. If you're on Xbox, go to your settings, click on general, and you'll see TV and display options. Now right underneath your resolution, you will see the option for refresh rate, change it to 120 Hz. If you have a monitor or TV that supports 120 Hz, but you're not seeing this option, the fix for it is to go over to video fidelity and overscan over here and change the overrides to HDMI. It is set to auto detect by default, and that can cause some issues. I had some issues myself with not being able to find the refresh rate, so hopefully that can fix it for you there. Now for the actual in-game settings, we're starting here under the graphics tab, and at the top you see on-demand texture streaming. Turn this off, otherwise the game is downloading textures to your console while you're playing the game, which could introduce a bit of lag, which we don't want. And then underneath that, we have world motion blur, which we want to turn off. If you look here at the example, it introduces a blur to the game when you move around, and that's going to hurt your visibility significantly. We definitely do not want that turned on. And same thing for weapon motion blur here. It's the exact same setting, except it now adds blur to your weapon instead of the world, which again can hurt visibility, and we do not want that. Directly under the motion blur settings, we have film grain. Now this will add a film grain effect to your game, which will hurt visibility, and obviously we don't want that, so we turn this all the way down to 0. And same with depth of field, we want this turned off, otherwise the game simulates your depth of field, which does add blur in some places. You can kind of see it here in this example. When this player is ADS, you notice a little blur around the outside of the iron sights here, this little circle. Whereas with depth of field turned off here on the left, you don't get any sort of blur at all. Underneath depth of field, we have Fidelity FX Cast, and this is going to significantly improve our visibility. Turn this on, and what it's going to do is introduce sharpness to your game. So it's going to make your visibility a lot better, especially at range. And underneath it, you can adjust the strength of the sharpness. Personally, I put it at 100%. That extremely sharp look looks really, really good on my monitor, but that might look a little too sharp on your monitor. And if it does, just adjust this setting accordingly. And then we have the 120 Hz refresh rate option underneath that. If your monitor does support it, obviously turn it on. This is the single most important setting for you to get on par with PC players. And I'd argue that the second most important setting for getting you on par with PC players is the field of view option. Now, I would say anything above 100 field of view is good. Field of view really is personal preference. Not everyone wants to max it out because it's going to make those shots harder to hit at range, because what you want to do under the field of view tab is click show more and change ADS field of view to affected. Now, affected will make your ADS field of view the same field of view as your normal field of view that you set here. So for me, it's 120. And what this does is it makes you feel more zoomed out when you ADS, which will make you have a lot less visual recoil, as you can see here. The difference is pretty significant. It makes it a lot easier to hit your shots. The only downside is you're zoomed out a lot further, so enemies are going to appear smaller. And then also we have weapon field of view down here. You want to set this to wide. It's going to make your gun appear smaller, which will give you a little bit more visibility. And then under that, we got third person field of view. I just have it set all the way up, even though I don't even play the mode. And then first and third person camera movement. This is pretty important. You want to set these all the way down the least. That way your camera isn't shaking as much when there's explosions going off, or just when you're running around the map in general. This again is going to help improve visibility a lot. Third person ADS transition here. Like I said, I don't play the game mode, but you can just choose how you want to ADS in third person game mode. So you could choose the ADS in the third person or first person. That's basically going to be personal preference, although I do think first person ADS probably would be a bit better. And then default spectator camera, switch this to game perspective so you don't get that over the shoulder spectating view, which is almost kind of nauseating in a way. And then we have brightness here. Brightness is self-explanatory. Adjust the brightness here until the middle logo is barely visible, as it tells you to do on screen here. And then the bottom setting here is pretty important. It's called safe area, right? So click on it and drag the safe area all the way as low as it can go. And what this is doing is it's squeezing in your HUD. So important information like the mini map or your teammates, how much ammo you have, plates, all that is going to be closer to the center of your screen, which is going to make it a lot easier to see. So you're not looking up all over the place at the corners of your monitor, and it's just kind of right there in your peripheral vision. You'll notice a lot of top tier players are doing this. It just makes things a little bit easier to see. Moving over to audio, the best audio mix is home theater. It gives you a really wide dynamic range, which makes it a lot easier to hear footsteps and people reloading, things like that, when there's other loud noises going on in the game like airstrikes, although you're probably not going to hear footsteps half the time anyways because audio is broken in this game. Now master volume really is your preference, depends how loud you want your game, but click on show more and turn music volume all the way down to 0. You don't want to be in the middle of a gunfight and trying to listen for audio cues while the game is blasting music in your ears. That's just distracting and overall just hurting your performance. And then dialogue volume, the operators, you don't want them shouting very loudly in your ear and being distracting or covering up important sounds, again, like footsteps. So we turn this down to 50, but the most important one is to make sure that your effects volume is at 100. This is going to affect things like footstep audio, people reloading, gunshot sounds, all of that. And then voice chat volume here is going to depend on your setup. For the most part, the rest of the settings here under audio are going to depend on you and your setup. It's really all personal preference. Besides reduced tinnitus sound here, I recommend turning this on. You know that sound when you get flashed and it's a really loud ringing sound and it's very obnoxious and annoying. This is going to dull that sound and just make it a lot easier on your ears. I highly recommend turning this setting on. Moving on over to the interface tab. Now, the most important thing under interface is color customization. You're going to want to set your game to filter 2, set color filter target to both, and world color intensity and interface color intensity both to 100. Now, unfortunately, on console, you can't change your color filters like you can on PC to make the game super vibrant and saturated, which will give you better visibility, but this will get you close and this will get you somewhat on par with PC players in that department. Now, I used to recommend everyone going down to neutral and changing this color because changing the color of neutral would change the color of your pings and your teammates' pings, all that. But they finally made pinging a little bit better in season 2 because now if your teammate is green, his ping will be green. If he's blue, his ping will be blue, and so on. So this isn't really necessary to change anymore. So we're going to back out of that and then scroll down a little more until you see telemetry here. And this is where you can turn on your server latency and packet loss, so you can see your ping and see your packet loss in the top left hand corner of your screen in game. And that'll let you know if you're lagging at all. Scrolling down a bit more under interface, we have center dot here, which I personally turn on. Now there's always a center dot in the middle of your crosshairs, but by turning this on, what it's going to do is allow you to have a larger dot in the center of your crosshair. That way it's a lot more visible and it's going to make your centering a lot easier. And then for controller settings, I haven't changed anything since I made the controller settings video, so I will link that down below if you guys are interested in the best controller settings for getting the strongest aim assist. And if anything does change with any of these settings, I will keep you guys updated, so make sure to click the subscribe button to stay up to date with all these settings, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Here's the web. Peace.